Namibia is poised to be one of the continent's largest oil producers. This by as early as 2030, thanks to a series of significant oil discoveries that could be a massive boost to its economy and government revenues. Joining us with greater detail and more perspective on this is Gerrit van Rooyen, who's economist at Oxford Economics Africa. Gerrit, a pleasure. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Wonderful. Gerrit, let's get right into it. Just how much oil has Namibia discovered since that first oil in 2022?
Okay, so Namibia has been quite remarkably well at finding oil lately. They discovered since 2022, when they discovered three oil fields, they have since now risen that number to 8. And they are, in fact, one of the top hotspots in the world for oil exploration at the moment. Just about every well that they are drilling, they are finding oil. Regarding the exact amount of oil that's been discovered, that is quite still uncertain because the oil appraisals and exploration is still ongoing. You may have seen in the media that quite large numbers have been thrown about. Most recently, Galp Energia said that they found about 10 billion barrels of oil in their Mopane oil field. And earlier, the Shell and Total Energies discoveries were said to hold about 11 billion barrels of oil. But it's important to note that these figures refer to the oil in place. So this is the actual oil in the ground. That doesn't tell you how much of the oil is actually technically recoverable. And even if you have recoverable reserves, it doesn't tell you how much of the oil is actually economically recoverable, which is the figure that we're after. So we're still awaiting for Shell and Total to release those figures regarding recoverable reserves, hopefully by the end of this year or early next year, so that they can go forward with making investment decisions. But based on the information that we've received so far from the Ministry of Mines and some of the other consultancies in the oil sector space, we at Oxford Economics Africa currently estimate that Namibia so far has discovered about 4.6 billion barrels of recoverable oil. And that figure could possibly go higher, of course, as more discoveries of commercial oil is made in the country.
Of course, what's also important here is timelines. So do we know when Namibia can start officially producing oil, and also the economic impact of that? That could be huge, Gerrit.
Sure. So at the moment, based on the current reserves that's been discovered, we expect that production could start in 2029. That would be Total's Venus oil project that will start in 2029. That will be followed shortly by Shell's Jonker project in 2030. And when these projects start, they are bound to have a very big impact on economic growth. We expect that GDP growth, we could see double-digit GDP growth rates in the early years of production. And then we expect that production from those two projects could ramp up to around 500,000 barrels per day, which would make Namibia one of the top 5 oil producers in Africa. Regarding the impact on oil revenues, that will initially be quite gradual to start with, because the government actually has to pay the oil companies for their cost of exploration and development. But once that's repaid, there will be a significant impact on the government revenues. We could see it possibly doubling by 2035. And that, of course, will help the government to fill up their newly created sovereign wealth fund, which could be used to boost the country's reserves and act as a shock absorber in difficult economic times, and also help with economic development to improve infrastructure and educational incomes in the country. Yeah, so that is from 2030 about onwards. We're already seeing some impact from the oil exploration alone on the economy, especially in terms of FDI, which is already at record levels. And the exploration is also boosting the GDP numbers, also the mining production numbers. And now we're seeing a GDP growth of around 3.2% in the medium term for Namibia, in part thanks to this boost from oil exploration.
And I mean, Namibia is very close to us here, Gerrit, and maybe, I'm being cheeky asking this one, but has South Africa missed the boat? Could we have oil somewhere?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say we missed the boat, but we're definitely losing the race, or not in the lead anymore, because we actually were leading Namibia in terms of oil and gas exploration. Total did discover make some big gas discoveries in 2019 and 2020, but now our progress has stalled and Namibia has taken us over. I think that is in part because Namibia is seen as an easier place to invest. There's less red tape, and also companies have faced less legal action in Namibia compared to South Africa, where environmentalists have made it difficult for Shell to do exploration in terms of seismic surveys along the West Wild Coast. Sorry. Recently, well, the good news is that, well, at least for not the environmentalists, is that the companies are still quite excited about South Africa. They're not giving up. The fact that Namibia has been so successful does reduce the risk for them in South Africa in terms of finding discoveries. The discoveries that were made in Namibia are also quite close to the South African border. So we're seeing oil companies now focusing on targeting that area of the Orange Basin close to the Namibia discoveries. And recently, the Supreme Court also ruled that Shell can, in fact, reapply for a permit to do exploration along the Wild Coast. So all is not lost for the South African hydrocarbon sector.
Wonderful, Gerrit. Thank you for your time this afternoon, also taking us through this very interesting development here. That was Gerrit van Rooyen, economist at Oxford Economics Africa.